All right, so let's make a formal introduction for our listener. Good afternoon, Damon. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C., from the studios in Fairfax City. We are very humble and grateful that Damon accepted our invitation to our show. Hey, Damon, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. It's great
No
to be here.
problem. So let's go to what's going on in the world, man. With the COVID dying, the last 2 years have been very difficult for everybody. You know, whether you're a tour musician or you want to go out or you want to play, you want to travel, it has affected you and your life and your family. How's this as a musician? The COVID has affected your sanity, your creativity. How you holding up, man?
Oh, it's been a complex experience. I mean, we have Emily plays violin in the group, and we're a couple, and we have 2 kids. So it was, and we're trying to work from home. So it's been pretty chaotic for part of the pandemic. However, I'm also one of those people that is fairly, I can do alone time. I tend to, pretty introverted, and I tend to spend a lot of time alone to begin with. So I wasn't, suffocated by the changing conditions of the pandemic. I'm lucky to live in a place where we have a lot of outside space. We got out of our cramped apartment in the Bay Area 3 months and moved to Vermont 3 months before the pandemic hit, and now I can go for a walk. And so when it was at its worst, I could still be out in nature and see people on the street, and it was not a city. So I feel really lucky to have been able to do that, and for my whole family. But musically, well, a couple of things happened. One, I definitely miss playing live, and I still haven't returned to that. For a while, I was doing sort of house recordings myself with a guitar, in front of the camera, just like, for Facebook or whatever, but that was not a big deal. But I haven't played a live show since 2019, I think, with the band. And I really miss that. Despite being introverted, I really, once I get on stage and get to play my stuff, I get, there's nothing better than that. And I really do miss that. So hopefully we'll be able to return to that at some point. But I did a lot of, actually, for the bulk of the lockdown period, I was working on a collaboration with Ben Spies of the Mercury Tree called Ventifax, and that's a microtonal songwriting project. And that really kept me creatively engaged. I can work by myself. I'm always working on Jack of the Clock recordings, but it's kind of lonely, when I, just to work on recordings, even when Emily comes in and, does an overdub. So collaborating with Ben was really a nice way to still be actively involved with another musician during the pandemic. And we did it. It took about 2 years to finish this album. We were sending, tracks. He's in Portland, Oregon. And so we were just sending tracks back and forth. And it was really a collaboration. It was very 50-50, which is not something I'd done before, honestly. And that was just really stimulating. It was really exciting. I get a new track, and you listen to it and have all these ideas, and kind of, it felt like an engagement, with the outside world, the music world, when wasn't able to go to shows or play shows. So
do you music, you do that full time, or you have another job that you do on the side, or vice versa?
I'm a psychotherapist.
Yeah, gotcha.
And so that's but I do it. I did actually do music. Well, it was teaching. I was doing something related to music full time for a number of years, and I got into psychotherapy over time, but about 5 years ago. And it's a better balance for me. That said, I don't do it full time. I have about 10 clients, and then I still have some music students. So, and I do some mixing and well, mostly mixing work for people as well. So I do kind of a mix of things, work-wise, music-related and not music-related. I didn't, yeah, it's a big, it's a big question, but it's working for me right now. But it's between family and doing therapy and music, I'm totally feel as busy as I've ever been.
Yeah, good for you, man. Yeah. As mentioned before, I'm an engineer. Music is my passion. I don't know how
Yeah.
to play in any instrument. I would never learn. I don't know how to read music. I don't know, but I've been listening to music for the last 50 years. I don't know, 3, 4 hours a day, and so it's
Yeah, amazing.
give me music has given me a lot of satisfaction. And I knew I grew up in a family where music was important, so I knew that I will end up doing this or a record shop or a club or being involved in music one way or another. And so it has been great to me. So I'm very fortunate that I do what I want. I like what I do. So
Yeah.
so I'm very happy. Were you born like in a musical family? How old were you when you began taking perhaps piano lessons or guitar lessons?
Yeah, my parents weren't super musical, but my dad played guitar and my mother played piano, classical piano. And when I was 3 or 4, there was a piano at my grandmother's house, and every time I would go over there, I would go right to it and spend a lot of time, messing with it. And so my mother said, let's bring that over. No one's using it there. Let's bring it over to our house. And she just noticed that I was really interested in it. And so I started taking piano lessons and, classical, the usual, and writing and figuring out pop songs that I was listening to. And when I was old enough to get my hands around my dad's guitar, I started playing guitar. That was more like 5th grade, because it was just kind of big and bulky. And of course it's harder mechanically. So I kind of, that's how it started. They listened to a lot of music, but they weren't super, they weren't super active as musicians. It was kind of just a pastime thing.
What kind of music were you listening when you were, I don't know, in high school, or what kind of bands did you listen to?
Well, I mean, when I was really young, it was all my parents' records. So that was, it was records. so they had a lot of 60s stuff, psychedelia and folk. My dad liked a lot of folk, and he, so like Simon and Garfunkel and Jethro Tull and a bunch of stuff. And when I got to high school, I started playing in bands. I actually started, for my first band, I was a drummer, because they needed a drummer, and my uncle was a drummer, and I used to mess around also at my grandmother's house, his drum set, so I could play basic. I actually learned on the job, but and that was during the grunge era, like sort of early 90s, and so everybody, that was kind of, we were doing grunge, which was a pretty good way to get into music. In the band, I was, of course I played piano, but like performing in a classical context, but in the rock context, it was kind of nice. The grunge heroes, were playing kind of, it was comprehensible. I was listening to, like on my own, I was listening to more progressive rock. In high school, and playing in jazz band. I played jazz piano, but nobody else listened to it. So the people that wanted to play music were doing, into, Jane's Addiction and, Pearl Jam and, so I'm like, okay, this I could get into that. I can do this. And so it was cool. It was a fun experience, and it got me. It was a focal point. By the time I had my own band, by the time I was maybe sophomore or junior in high school, and that was kind of halfway in between, progressive rock and kind of a proto Jack of the Clock in a way.
Yeah, and you knew back then that kind of music was your path, or you had like a pressure for your folks? No, you need to go to school. School is the only way to make it. Forget about music, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, we did have conversations like that. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I always knew. I mean, yeah, very early on, listening to my parents' records, I remember listening to something and I was like, oh, this makes you feel so good. That's why people do it. Yeah, I want to do it. I mean, like 1st grade or something, I was pretty sure that I wanted to do it. So yeah, I wanted to go to music school, and they were kind of pushing for a more well-rounded education, and that ended up being a good choice for me because I have a lot of interests, and it worked out all right.
Well, you're in Vermont now, but that not far in Boston is the Berklee School of Music, which is a very well-known school for music. So
yeah.
and,
I had a friend that went there. Yeah.
it's hard to make it as a musician.
Yeah.
You need to get lucky on the way. You need to work harder than anybody else. Need to get lucky on the way. It's very to make a good living. It's difficult. Other professions, you can be an average guy and still make a good salary, but
Yeah.
Recording or performing musicians is tough, man. So
yeah, so I was an English major in college, and that is absolutely no more useful than
really, yeah.
Well,
but,
maybe so.
But at the end of the day, you need to do what you like it. I mean, it so happened that it works out well for me, that I do like a music on the side, but I have a full-time job, because I knew that I had that expensive taste and I wanted to see a lot of shows, and I say, well, I need money coming in, to be able to buy music, to be able to afford going to concerts, stuff like that. So I knew that I needed to study, a solid career, I suppose. But
yeah, expensive taste, that's the problem. Yeah.
That's right. But I like it. At the end, you need to do what you like. And because I think I was reading that the band was formed in 2014.
No, 2007.
Huh? Wow.
2007. Yeah.
Oh, the early recording I thought was 214. Feel free to elaborate on the motivation to put that, the band together, the early version of the band.
Well, I went to Mills College for a master's in composition in around that time. It was like 2004 and 2005, 6, and I was doing just well, I wouldn't say straight up, but I was doing classical composition, and there was a lot. It was a bit more like an art school. There was a lot more sort of diversity of ideas there than there are at a lot of more university settings and music schools, and so a lot of people had interest in, played in bands and had interest in. I guess that's probably true across the board now, but it was a good experience. But I towards the end of that, I had one of the other composers there mentioned that it would be fun to start a song-oriented folk band, and I thought, and she was influenced by Sufjan Stevens, and I checked that out and thought, this is pretty good. This is like, along similar lines to what I like to do. Because I hadn't brought any of my songs I was writing songs, but I was kind of focused on finishing a bunch of classical stuff. And so I was kind of writing songs in the closet, so to speak. And this was an opportunity to kind of take, and particularly when I finished the degree, now we can do the band. And so she and Emily and I all started doing that together. And then Jordan, the drummer, joined us as well. But it was very folky at first. We were just, I was just playing folk instruments, acoustic instruments. And then when Jason, the bass player, and Kate, the bassoon player, joined a year later, and Nikki left to do other things, became more of a rock band, with the rhythm section.
Where were you playing at the time? Were you touring in small clubs, or in whatever, in the town you were living at the time? Were you making a little bit of money? Or
not really. I mean, we were playing in really little cafes in Oakland, mostly Oakland, San Francisco. And then, as within a year, we were doing tours up and down the West Coast a little bit. We never toured a lot, but we went up to, Seattle and Portland, and, did, and gradually, then bars and slightly better venues. And then we got to a point where we didn't want to play in, with certain sound systems, because the sound, we had played a lot of instruments that were, hard to mic, and if you didn't have a good sound system, it would be Feedback City or, hammered dulcimer, banjo, and we used to use more of these instruments early on, and so it was, switching instruments between every song, and it was a nightmare if you didn't have a good sound person. So eventually we actually got our own sound person, another Mills person, to just kind of come to the shows with us. And she was kind of a warrior, it was not a great position to be in, because you'd show up at a show and like there would be a sound person and we'd be like, no, we have our own sound person. She'd have to kind of like, you know, elbow her way in there. So it's kind of awkward. So I don't think it was that fun for her, but you know, it was just one way of dealing with the fact that we had a very particular dialed in sound. And it just took, you know, the better part of 10 years to get that to work and to stop bothering with things like banjo, you know, that just never sounded good on stage.
Yes, one of those instruments that is hard to, but in many ways, I like, so I was listening to like 3 or 4 CDs from you guys last night, Bandcamp and Spotify, and in a way you have your own, I mean, you need to create a sound which is totally your own, right? As if you're making music without compromise, right? You could have done a lot of mainstream stuff that a lot of people would like it, but you guys took the difficult path, if you will, and in music, and well, this is what we play, you know, this is what we like. We like folk and bring instruments. So if you don't like our music, you know, don't come to see us, you know, don't play. So
yeah, well, I mean, why bother otherwise?
So why bother, right? So what's it's some bands, and I have met and interviewed a lot of people, and they give up and they go mainstream, right? Because they want to make a living, or they need to make money, or under a record label they get pressure. No, get rid of the stuff and do it like this, you know, whatever this happens to be, you know. Wow, yeah. How you were able to, the whole band, to stay together and say, no, this is our style, and we want to be good in what we do, and we concentrate this area. But was it difficult, or
was it difficult to stay together?
No, to make the decision to play that type of music as opposed to go mainstream and do other stuff.
I don't feel like it was a decision. I just make the music that I want to hear that I'm not hearing. So it was I mean, again, it's not worth it otherwise. It didn't seem, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't blame anyone who wants to, you know, make a living and they want to do it that way, and they, you know, it's not there's no judgment on that, but it wasn't of interest to me, because my interests are not, I did consider for a while, you know, before therapy, you know, maybe I would do film music, but you know, that is its own racket. You know, it's all who you know, and it causes, you know, it requires a lot of effort, and I felt like, well, that would be a sort of musical compromise, and it just takes a lot of energy away from, you know, it's a reason not to want to work in music, because that way, when I'm doing music and I spend a lot of time doing music, I can do exactly what I want. And you know, if I take on a mixing project, that's a little different, but I take on projects that I like generally, so there's still some compromise there. But if I had to do it for a full-time job, I wouldn't make any of my I wouldn't enjoy making my own music.
Yeah. How many records have you guys released so far? Albums or EPs? About 10 or so?
I mean, not quite. I mean, it depends on how you count them, but yeah, 7 or 8, something like that. I don't actually, I'm not sure. But
have you ever thought that you guys will go that far, or after doing the first one, or?
I was prepared to go as far as, you know, as possible, but you know, I wouldn't have necessarily thought that particular lineup would stay for so long. But at the same time, I kind of was obsessive about it. I love the process of making albums, and I'm always working on them. And you know, we didn't have a record label until the most recent album. So, which was, there was a lot of good things about that. Not just, you know, that we could recoup most of the money that went into the albums, but also I didn't have to wait for release. And then, you know, so the creative process, the learning process that went into making all these albums, I could just kind of do one. For a while, I was doing one a year, usually about every 18 months. And so I could, when I wanted to release it, I can release it and then kind of not have to wait, you know, a year to release it, and then, you know, be kind of backed up. So it enabled me to kind of get my 10,000 hours in, you know, more quickly and try different things and try, you know, different experiments and just
So
learn the
before you
craft.
guys were doing self-releasing, I mean, you were,
Mostly, yeah, mostly self-releasing.
and then I think it's you under now Cuneiform record, right?
Yeah.
I don't know
Mhm.
how to pronounce that, but it's an independent record label. And a big difference if you can compare, you know, like on your own versus under a record label. What are the major differences, if you will?
It has been, we've been able to reach a few more critical outlets that we weren't before. We got, you know, a review in Wired magazine. I don't think I would have gotten in there, just like writing letters, you know, as myself to people. And so a few others like that. I think probably so, like the name, the Cuneiform distributive channels and the name also opened, you know, a few ears to us. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a dramatic difference, but there's a noticeable difference. And I just was ready to try something different. I was aware of that label even as far back as the 90s, because I was a big fan of the group Thinking Plague, and they were on that label, and I thought, who's releasing all this interesting music? So I was aware of them for quite some time, and I, you know, had contacted. There's not a lot of labels out there, you know, that
No,
I
it's not.
wanted to approach, because
Yeah.
I mean, they're either no chance, you know, the music's too weird, and they were just like, they're not even going to try, or they're too nichey, like some of the, you know, more like down the center prog labels I wasn't that interested in, because I never felt really comfortable being pigeonholed as a prog band. So Cuneiform is one of very few labels that, you know, where it's like, this is interesting music, it's experimental, but it has a certain, you know, it's not strictly classical new music, it's not a jazz label, because we don't really fit into, although they've been moving to more like jazz adjacent music in recent, let's say, decades. But and, you know, at some point I contacted them and, you know, directly made a pitch, and they were like, you know, I had a relationship. They were selling the old albums through a sister site through Wayside, but it was just like raw numbers, like, you know, we really like the music, but we don't think you could sell enough, and which is, you know, fair enough. But things got restructured a couple of years ago, and now all of a sudden, like, they offered to take us on, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'm ready to try something different. I want to reach more people. And
yeah, so you plan to, if things continue to work out, you will stay with a record label and then keep on releasing album under their umbrella, if you will. Yeah.
Well, for now, if they'll have me, I think
I hope so.
I hope so. I mean, I would try different things too. I just you know, I'm open to, I would like to reach different groups of people. I'm grateful for the people that do listen to the music. I just feel like, you know, always wanting to reach other ears.
Yeah. How you guys doing in terms of sales via Bandcamp? I think you guys doing all right, right?
I mean, I don't know how to judge what's good and what's bad. Some people do a lot more sales. Some people do less. So, I mean, I think it's okay, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, more people, fewer and fewer, I think, in the world are buying CDs and vinyl. A lot of people just consume, you know, music via digital format, if you will. No my taste, but you know, there's a market for everybody, right? So on things, Bandcamp, I think it only takes 10%. The other 90% go to the artist. It's a great way to make money, as opposed to Spotify, where you need to make $1, you need to have a million hits or whatever the number happens to be, you know. So
there's no comparison. Yeah, Bandcamp is definitely the way to go, and they're high quality streaming as well. So yeah, I'm definitely grateful to that site. I know some people like SoundCloud as well, but I don't like their audio quality, so I'd never use them.
For me, it's great because at least Spotify and Bandcamp because they give me ability to listen and discover a lot of new music. That's what I end up discovering,
I
your
know.
band, it's great. I pay only whatever, $10 a month or whatever for
Yeah.
the Spotify premium, and I listen to thousands of them. And from there, oh man, I like this band, different. I want to email them, reach out, and then set up an interview and so on and so forth. So it's a great way to get to know music. And I want to ask you a kind of open-ended question because I want to mean what music meant to you, but music can be like a mystical and magical experience, if you will. What's your creative process look like? How you wake up in the morning when you take the kids to school, whatever. How you release music? How music come to you? How when you decide to, okay, I want to spend an hour, I have an idea, driving to school or taking snow out or whatever. Man, how the process is that
Oh, I mean, all kinds of different processes. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned driving to school or whatever. Like today I was working on a recording of a long song that I've been working on for a long time and trying to figure out what to do with the ending of it. And I was I was solving problems while driving. Like once I actually got away from the computer and was going to pick up my daughter, I was running through the end of it and trying to figure out how the dramatic arc of it should go, and just in my head, and kind of like that's when things really fall together a lot of the times, when I leave the compositionally, when I leave the medium, and like sometimes I go on a walk, or same things with writing lyrics. Sometimes it's just getting out into the world brings it back around. But yeah, I agree that it's a mystical. There's a mystical component to not only the process, but I would go so far as to say anything worth listening to. For me personally, it has a spiritual quality. If it doesn't, it may serve a function. There's like good sort of rhetorical songs out there too, but I'm not that interested at the end of the day if it doesn't have some mystery in it, at least have some uncertainty.
Yeah. Do you of course you as you're composing or working with other people, mixing stuff, or listen to your music, do you listen to a lot of music in general for other people, other musicians, other bands when you're in the car or driving or whatever, or you kind of just concentrate on your own stuff? And
well, when I'm in the car, the kids tell me what we have to listen to. I mean, so yeah, we listen to camp songs, and actually my older daughter is she just gets really into one thing, and we listen to that for a while. So we do a lot of Kate Bush's Hounds of Love.
Of course.
It's
very good. Yeah.
But and certain she's into musicals and things like that I'm not as interested in. Yeah, I listen to music every day, like you, not 3 hours, but sometimes. I mean, I in the middle of the day I go on a run usually, and that's my time to, like, no matter what's going on, I go out and be in nature, and I'll listen to whatever I'm listening to at the time. And so last week I was listening to this live duo album with Chick Corea and Bella Fleck, which not people I listen to all that much, but that was really excellent. Excellent. I mean, just like such a high level. I really appreciate that combined experience of having my body engaged and being out in nature and taking in this intricate, spontaneous music is a beautiful experience. And then I also listen to a lot of music at night, kind of as the kids are falling asleep. I'll lie there in the dark and listen to other things. And sometimes I just want quieter things, like Morton Feldman or John Hassel. And sometimes I explore. I kind of went through a Beatles phase recently. I watched that documentary, and it was like, I actually hadn't listened to things that, canonical albums like Revolver. I like never actually sat through, and so now was the time. And then so I went through a Beatles phase, and yeah, I mean everything like yeah, all sorts of different music.
Do you like a band called Flirk? I think they're Flirk.
I don't know.
I will send you the link. You will like them. Quite sure. Do you know who David Sylvian is?
Yeah, yeah.
That kind of stuff. I like him too. But I have, man, Pink Floyd, Depeche Mode, Led Zeppelin, Blondie, Coldplay, Bad Benatar, Jean-Luc Ponty, Pat Metheny, and blah blah blah. I have a wide. So with music, it's great, and so we are very lucky that we can listen and do, in your case, make music as a living. I want to bring your attention to a couple of tracks, and feel free to elaborate on them. I grabbed
Sure.
2 tracks from Spotify. I think the first one is an EP called Jubilation for the album Live in California.
Yeah.
Feel free to elaborate about how that came together and what was the process. And
Well, that's the album that was released on Cuneiform. So that's not only the single is available on Spotify. That was the trade-off with Cuneiform, and you know, they have a hard line with not collaborating with Spotify, which I don't blame them. You know, you don't want to participate in the streaming, that's fine. So that album is not available except through Bandcamp.
yeah.
Except Jubilation. So that song, how did that come about?
Yeah.
I think I just was messing around on the mandolin one day, and I just had this fast strummed thing, which just instantly wanted to be an album opener. You know, I tend to do a lot of these kind of subtle, slow album openings, and I just thought, ding, 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 this is going to be like, no, I'm just going to come like out of the gates screaming once in my life, and not build up, just like kind of come, you know, whole hog. And Jason and Jordan, the rhythm section, got on board completely. And you know, sometimes I'm actually I can be a little shy about like making a grand gesture, and like being, you know, I'm just like, you know, am I being cheesy, or like, is this like, and you know, they were helpful in encouraging me to just kind of go for it with that, and kind of underlining it and bringing it to life, and being really, you know, muscular. And you know, so Jordan played in a way that I'd never heard him do before, just like doing this, he said it was like a Keith Moon thing, like just very much on top of, you know, just loud, big drumming. Because usually a very subtle, sort of more jazz inflected drummer, but he can do anything. And yeah, the song is it's a jubilant song too, obviously. It's, you know, fairly personal.
Yeah. It's very good. I really like it. The other one, the other EP, I think is called a minor disaster, or if I remember correctly the name. Right?
Oh, yeah. Well,
that's an oldest one.
That's old. Yeah, that's from 2013, I think. Yeah, that was actually, well, I kind of I revamped an old song called Disaster from our album All My Friends, which is a 2013 album. And I had some outtakes from that, some sections that I always liked on the Hammered Elsewhere, and Nikki, that's Nikki, the original person I founded the band with, playing harp. And I never got to use it in anything, but it was associated with that song. So I was releasing some unreleased tracks, and I thought, I'm just gonna, you know, build this up to be just a new version of the same song. So it's the same lyrics, but different harmonic structure. And I was able to kind of stick that unused part in the middle. It worked out pretty well. I was pretty happy with it. That song's been revamped a couple times. There's actually a third version of it that we did live.
Really?
Totally different chord changes, like just, you know, same words, but different music somewhat.
It's very good. I like it. I mean, it's, I always, when I see, you know, 10 albums, perhaps I won't be able to listen to 10 of them, but somebody released an EP, right? Kind of telling me, well, this is unique, this is different. That's what we call, this is an EP, right? So I go for that kind of stuff. So that, and I
Like the
sometimes I
EP.
like it, sometimes I don't like it. You know, that's just, yeah.
Yeah, I mean those are kind of, they're the unreleased tracks that couldn't get on any albums. They're just they're kind of oddballs. So it's a little bit of a stuck together thing, but I tried to make it flow as best I could.
Yeah.
The no outlet.
Both are the two that I just mentioned that are, in my opinion, they're very, very good. Feel free to elaborate on the album in general, you know, Live in California, and how long does it take for, you know, beginning to end to put an album together, and what was, see, many bands keep on doing the same thing, and that album, for the reviews I have heard and read about, that is very different. What was the motivation to put that album together, and why it's different from the other ones according to reviews that I have read? And
well, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's different in certain ways. I'm not the best judge of that sometimes. It feels more, well, no, it does feel more positive and more heart oriented, and a little bit less intellectualizing maybe in the lyrics. And that is a trend, I think, that's continuing, you know, with my newer work. But well, I mean, we Emily and I left California. We left our rhythm section in California, so the band is kind of in an uncertain place as it is. But I had a bunch of unfinished songs, some of which we'd worked on as a band, and some of which were just things I was working on that I wanted to bring them into. So over the course of a year and a half or so, I recorded 3 albums worth of stuff of Jason and Jordan, and also, you know, Thea, the other singer, although, you know, we can continue to do things remotely, but so that was the first one I put together of those things that I'm still working on. There's still a lot more material from those sessions. But those are the newest tracks. Those are generally the ones that were written sort of since 2018. And so they're from, I wanted to group them together and put out something that really felt new, because frequently I'm always recording things and I'm always finishing things. I feel like I'm always finishing, and I rarely get, it's a fun day when I get to start something new, but there's so much, it's 99% finishing things. And so there's still things from 2005 that I'm working on, you know, that have been layered and layered and layered. So a lot of these albums have been, I'll be doing 2 or 3 albums at a time, and I'll kind of figure out how they best flow and how they can be grouped mood wise. So that's how they do sometimes get a bit of a distinct mood, and that's kind of deliberate. There's one called Night Loops, which is all nocturnes, and it's much more experimental and kind of more downbeat than a lot of the other ones. And so Leaving California was fairly band oriented and a little more, well, it's actually a little rockier, but I don't know what to call it. But as I said, it's some of the newer songs, and I wanted to have one which didn't have any material that I've been working on for 10 years.
It's very good. I listened to the reviews, and although I form my own opinion, right? But it received great reviews. I mean, you guys doing something great, which is good. As an artist, right? As I mentioned before, it's very difficult to make it. You know, it's you know, I buy music and I buy CDs. You know, I pay whatever the amount, and I have no idea how it was put together. So now I'm in the process of reaching out to record labels owners as well, and sound engineers to understand the process behind the scenes. You know, the degree of difficulty and putting something together. It's difficult. Life of a musician, man. And looking back in your career, musical career, I mean, what moment are special to you? Any regrets or things you have done differently? So, you know, hindsight 2020 is very easy to look back and say, man, I wish.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've never been asked that question. I'm not really sure. I'm sure there are some things. I mean, I certainly learned a lot about how to, loosen up and in front of people. I could learn a lot more, but there's still a long way to go in that department. But not that I get overly nervous, but
you get nervous when you perform?
Well,
when you perform live? No.
If I haven't done it in a while, I'll get nervous, a little bit beforehand. But usually after one song, I'm like in it again. Even if I do a sloppy job, like, I get a little more unhinged by like inconsistencies in sound quality, or I can't hear my voice when that kind of bothers me. So sometimes it's a fight with, like psyching yourself and not getting discouraged and just like kind of riding with it. But yeah, you were asking me about regrets.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I only know what I know. But yeah, I mean, most of it would hinge on getting over inhibitions. If only I knew that it just doesn't matter what people think, and I've gotten over that to some extent, but it's a lesson I can continue to learn.
Sure.
Don't hold back.
That's easy to say, difficult to do.
Exactly.
And it's, I mean, my personal life as well, it's, I mean, evolving as a human being, I suppose, as a musician, as an artist. Myself,
yeah, and also, I'm sorry, would you?
No, myself as an engineer, we are evolving as human beings, right? Whether,
evolving as a human being, yeah. Yeah, I was going to say something else. Just
I interrupt you.
Oh no, I interrupted you. It was more like just it's kind of tricky to say, but something along the lines of you can be more honest, talking to yourself. But you only are. It's kind of I'll be thinking I'm being as honest as I possibly can. And then, I'll have an experience and then look back at myself and think, oh, you're covering up there, or you're protecting yourself there. You kind of don't know you're doing it until you're like knocked out of it. Yeah. And then, so that's a learning process. I feel like the unfolding of all my creative work is the unfolding of attempting to get ever more honest. And so maybe that's why it's sort of turned towards the heart. Feels like what's happening.
In Jungian terms, and we all wear like a mask. We are like a persona, right? We behave as someone else. All of us do the same thing. Whether I don't know if we can help it or not, but
right.
Every so often, in the middle of the night, you look at the mirror and you say, "Man, I didn't want to date a girl, or I didn't want to finish the job, or." Man, I wish I didn't get bad with my dad or whatever, because he said something stupid to me and I replied like I should have replied or whatever.
The middle of the night is that's where it's at.
Yeah, I listen to David Sylvian and I forget about the world.
Yeah,
for me, that's the guy is magic, mystical, if you will.
Yeah, Manophone and some of the Blemish tracks I really like.
Nice. I'm trying. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be interviewing his brother in a couple of weeks, and I'm trying to get a hold of David Sylvian, but he's very reclusive. It's hard to get a hold of the guy, so maybe it will never happen.
Oh yeah, good luck. I hope so. I hope you're able to. I love his album with the There's a Light That Enters Houses, that with no other house in sight.
Which
it's spoken word with what's his name, the poet, excellent poet.
Yeah, I need to check it out. Yeah, I forgot the name. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
One track, and it just takes you through a journey, and it has a Fenez on it. I think they're doing electronics, and it's just it's beautiful. It's quiet. It's a in the dark, at late at night with headphones kind of listen. But the poetry is great, and it's delivered in a very disarming way by the poet himself before he died. He died 10 years ago. Can't believe I'm blanking on his name because he's one of my favorites. Yeah.
It's okay. No, you will remember. Yeah, the guy is. It's one of David Sylvan. Well, among many, right? I don't know, many musicians, and I, depending on the day or the time of the day, or some weeks are busier than others doing stuff at home, but it's one of the that I've always go to, when I go to difficult periods, or sometimes I need to make decision, and I put David Sylvan before I go to bed, and tomorrow morning, I think, okay, this is the answer for whatever the problem happens to be, I don't know. Music, as I mentioned to you, music does magical things to me. I don't, whatever the best way I can describe it or express it in words, it's good days, bad days, and emotion, music does it for me. So I'm very likely that I'm able to listen to a lot of stuff. Any plan for releasing? I don't know if you ever thought about releasing like a live album or any tours coming up. If you have the chance to tour somewhere, are you guys aligning things for during the summer to play live in Vermont or somewhere else?
Not quite. We do have a live album. We did a live album in 2019. It was a show from 2017. So that was nice to do because it was sort of the end of the period of, the band as it used to be. As it turns out, I've written a bunch of new music that I've been working on with Emily, my wife, the violinist, and Kate, the bassoon player, who wasn't in the band for a few years because when we were in California, she moved to the East. And so we had replaced her with a sax player and Thea, the singer. But now, Kate was in New York City. She moved to Vermont like a few months after we moved here. We're about an hour away. So I asked her, do you want to try playing together again? And so I wrote a bunch of music for, composed out a bunch of music for the old ensemble. And it was like scratching an itch. I hadn't written Jack of the Clock music composed, I'd done all these recordings, but it's a different process, but I hadn't written sort of new music to be played live for a bunch of years, particularly with that, that's kind of like the, part of what we learned to use, to orchestrate with was that combination of, usually guitar, bass, drums, and bassoon and violin, and I could play the bassoon and violin off each other and the bass contrapuntally, and that was that's kind of the Jack of the Clock formula, if there is a formula. And so it was fun to be able to do that again. And this is really, it's been really exciting. And we've actually been playing with a different bass player who's been coming from California a few times a year and kind of rehearsing with us. And he also plays, this Victor Reynolds, he also plays some guitar. So we've been doing some multiple guitar things, which I never had a chance to do in a live setting. So I'm really happy to do that. It does have, and you're a Genesis fan, it has a little bit of an old Genesis vibe in the terms of like the antiphonal guitars playing different, different chords on top of each other. And that's really nice. Because I do that a lot in recordings. I'm always overdubbing, but to have another guitar player to work with has been kind of interesting. So it's not, this is a new, this might be a band with a different name, or it might end up being Jack of the Clock again. The reason I had hesitations about continuing this as Jack of the Clock, there's a couple of reasons. Even though, Kate, Emily, and I were all part of this, it's pretty much the same band. But the rhythm section, it's hard for me to cut them out and say like, this is the band now, they're out of it, because they're just, amazing. And, we did it together. We kind of did it for 10 years together. So it's that. And so like, if I, have a different name for this project when it gets to being doing live shows, maybe there's a way in which they can both sort of coexist or something. And the other thing is I'm still finishing all these recordings, and it'll be awkward if from Jack of the Clock, it'd be awkward if I'm like doing recordings for this too. And
sure.
you know, there's another rhythm section, and yet I'm still releasing stuff with the old rhythm section. So it remains to be seen, but we're eager to play again, to play live again. But it's a very slow process because the music's intricate, and you know, we can't get together quite as often. We used to rehearse twice a week, but like now it's like, you know, we're lucky if we do it twice a month. So you know, we do what we can but it's progressing. It's coming along. You know, we do know how to work together, at least. Like, it's, you know, it's an old relationship, so it was like as soon as we started playing together again, it was pretty instant.
Gotcha. Where the name Jack on the Clock came from? I need to ask it.
Well, it's I was just looking, I think I was looking in like Brewer's book of phrase and fable or something like that. I was looking for something and I came upon it. It's an automaton in old medieval churches that strikes the bell on the hour.
Yeah,
it's like a little robot that comes out. You know,
yeah.
And that really appealed to me. I really like the any kind of sort of entity. I'm kind of into clocks, you know, in general, but any kind of entity that has that kind of mimics life but isn't life, or anytime that life itself appears mechanical. It's just an interesting, to me, it's a really interesting and even kind of fruitful gray area, which raises questions about you know, what is consciousness, what is spirit, you know, all these things are kind of central, and you know, what is life itself? I don't know. To me, it's just I like, you know, anything that kind of straddles that is instantly provocative. But it's a very personal thing. I mean, I think some people think it's the stupidest name they ever heard. So I don't know. I don't care. You know, it works for me.
Don't care what other people think. You know, if that's appealing to you, that is appealing to you. You know, that's the answer. You know,
I mean, it's a little clunky. It probably isn't the, you know, the most, like, it's not, I always have to like repeat it 3 or 4 times when what's your band called? Check it. What? But yeah, you know, we got a lot of, you know, people on the radio saying the wrong name, and like, so that's my own stupidity. It's just being bullheaded about, like, I like this name, I'm going to use it. God damn it. Learn to pronounce it.
And the last question, feel free to elaborate your record label, and where the mention the Bandcamp, if you will, or your website. You know, feel free to elaborate where people can buy your music and get a hold of you.
Oh yeah, well, jackotheclock.com is JACKOTHECLOCK.com, and it's a clunky old website that needs to be updated. And yeah, Cuneiform is the record label. You can find Leaving California there. Most of the albums are on CD, and you can also, through Wayside. Wayside is related to Cuneiform, and they have all our other CDs.
Yeah.
And yeah, the live album's only digital, so you can get Bandcamp as well. They're all on Bandcamp, including Leaving California. You just have to go to the Cuneiform to get Leaving California.
Good. Well, so Damon, thank you very much. I think it's getting dark down there, and with the weather, and it was very nice talking to you. Good luck to you. Hope things continue to do well, and hopefully we'll meet you one day, and hopefully we'll be able to see the band live. And if you are around this area and the DC area, feel free to ping me, and I would love to go and see you and listen to your music, man.
Yeah, thanks so much, Claudio.
No problem. Take it easy. Thank you very much. Have a great night. Thank you. Appreciate it.